Beyond the Veil with Daniel Jackson presents guest host Miriam Dow, Tools of the Trade.
Hello and welcome to Beyond the Veil with Daniel Jackson, me. Today we have a special guest on the show. Her name is Miriam Dow. Miriam Dow is a medical medium, EIT practitioner, certified hypnotist, and Reiki master. She communicates the body message regarding physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, and energetic well-being. Having suffered from chronic illness herself, she specializes in helping those with chronic and long-term illness find their way back to feeling joy in life. Hello, Miriam. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me on the show.
She's a little off-put by my way of saying hello there because she's trying to be a little more reserved than she usually is.
Well, no, I'm usually more reserved, except for when I'm with you. You sort of bring the devil out in me sometimes.
Yeah, I get that. You know, I get that a lot. People tell that. Yeah, the devil made you do it. No, I made you do it. That's what it is.
Don't worry, I'll listen up here in a minute.
As you are now.
Yes.
Today's show, we're going to talk about tarot and oracle cards because I have had readings before.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't understand the whole tarot and oracle card readings, even though the ones I've had have been pretty spot on.
Right.
But I'm just not sure of how that happens. I know people are intuitive with their gifts, and then they use the cards that they're using as part of it, just mixes in with it. But I've never really understood how that works. So that's why I'm having you on today, so you can explain to our audience how that does work. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
Awesome, because I don't know everything, but so I try to bring on. It's like if I go to get my car fixed, I can't do it myself, so I go to the mechanic to get it fixed. Well, I try to find the experts, and you're an expert, so.
Yeah, I'm an expert in that I know more than the average person about tarot.
Yeah.
And oracle.
I am below the average person, that's for sure. So today, tell us about tarot and oracle card questions. Like, what do people normally ask you about when they're trying to get a reading for you?
That's the thing. I don't do professional readings. I'm a hobbyist.
Okay.
And I read for family and friends, and I read for myself.
Okay,
which
good.
Some people say you shouldn't do. And sometimes, if you've got a particularly deeply buried problem, reading for yourself is impossible. But for the most part, I studied this and I've played with it as a hobby and not something that, I go out and sit on a table and do for other people.
Terry and I were doing a festival down in Virginia, and there was a woman there who was actually doing tarot cards. And then I was noticing her, and I saw her doing something, and I said, "What are you doing?" And she said, "Oh, I'm just asking myself questions and picking tarot cards for myself."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, okay." She says, "Don't you do that with spirit?" I said, "Yeah, I do that all the time." She said, "Okay, same thing." I said, "Oh, okay."
So my objective today really is to bring a layman's understanding and common sense understanding to the tarot cards, because I feel like there's a lot of mythology around them,
Yes.
that is just fallacious. So that's kind of what I'm coming to, because I have bought multiple decks and I've studied this a lot, and I've looked at, my own response to them and how things work and how they played out for me.
Sure.
And I think I can help people who are just coming into this to kind of like de-scarify them a bit.
Right, because I know whenever I see, like I saw a guy post something up about tarot cards one time I thought was very funny. And what it said was, you see the girl sitting next to the woman who's, got her draped little thing on. She's trying to look like she's a gypsy or something, and because everybody thinks that's what's involved in it, and the woman deals out the cards, and she starts telling her the truth of everything, and the girl says, I don't like that shit there. Shuffle that stuff up again. Because she doesn't. Because people don't always want to hear what the truth is. They hide from the truth all the time, and when they start getting the truth, they go, oh no, maybe there's another truth, but there is no other truth. As I tell people, I can only tell the truth one way. I can't tell it 50 ways until one way suits you. So, and that's what people think is going to happen. Now you can shuffle them up and something's going to come out better, but that's not the truth, correct?
No, that's not the truth at all. So, the way I came to tarot was I was a very strong Christian years ago, but I was in a mess that Christianity couldn't get me out of, and my mom knew a witch who had created a tarot deck. Now, I that word witch makes people uneasy, and
yes, I
don't know the lady myself. Her tarot deck was very interesting to me. I was, like I said, in a dark place, and I needed some sort of guidance. And so I would do what that lady did. I would ask a question, I would just pull a card. I'll ask a question, pull a card. And I found out that it was my energy. It wasn't some mysterious thing outside myself that was talking to me. It was my energy that pulled the card.
Right.
And I was talking to myself, in a sense, through the pictures in the decks. And so that's when I realized that, even though this is, something that was made up by a person that I've never met her. So, but it was made up by a person I wouldn't normally think of myself associating with.
Right.
It was yet a tool that I could use for my own self-improvement.
Sure. And that's a good way of going about it as well, because when you go to someone who doesn't necessarily know you or know anything about you, that's the best way to get information about you, because they have no real interest there other than just meeting you for the first time and saying, okay, this is the way things are going to go, and it just happens that way, which is pretty cool. So it happens right there on the fly, and there's nothing you can actually change about that that's going to go, oh, well, she knew this about me or knew that about me. This is happening right here, now.
It's immediacy.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is the difference between tarot and oracle cards.
Yes.
The oracle cards are different from the tarot. The tarot decks are traditional. There are 78 cards in this deck. There are there are two kinds. There are the major and the minor arcana, and that means like the emperor and the empress and the high priestess and the magus and the fool. That would be the major arcana, and in the minor arcana you have the cups, the wands, the pentacles, which each one has its own meaning. Pentacles are earth. They are the coins. They are the manifestation of things. Water is the cups are water. They're in motion. The wands are will and power and force. The swords represent the mind. So going into the tarot, these are very old. They've been around since the 14th century. And if you have a tarot deck, you will have 78 cards. You will have the major and the minor arcana. And they may be different. Like for this deck, instead of having a page of cups, there's a princess of wands. But the information for the princess of wands and the page of cups is pretty much the same.
Okay, so there is some correlation between the two.
Yeah, there's some slight variation between decks, but it's going to be slight.
So I'm not going to be pulling cards and then go, okay, gin.
No. Although they did start out as
really?
As playing cards, yes.
Oh, okay.
They were used at parties. But anyways, so that's a very tarot is a very traditional. It's this 1-for-1, 78 cards to and there's different kinds of tarot decks even that they are themed in different ways. But tarot is tarot, right? So then you've got the in-between, this little guy here, which is the Psychic Tarot Oracle deck.
Okay, well then...
This guy wanted to straddle the line. And I use this once a year. I do a drawing from this for the 12 months. But this guy actually...
Oh, it comes with a book.
They all do. And
goodness.
That's one of the differences. This is the tarot handbook for this deck, for this traditional deck. And it's about the size of a laptop screen.
Yeah, it's pretty big. The one thing I did not come with is a instruction book, that's for sure. Right, honey?
Right. And this is very complicated. It has the tarot goes into like astrology. There's different astrology signals, some signs in the cards, and it's like very in depth. There's pages and pages of information, and it's very intimidating. Honestly, this book was given to me by a lady who tried it and was so intimidated by it. She's like, you know what, I'm never going to use this here.
So there is a lot to learn.
There's a lot to learn. Yes,
right.
Absolutely. Especially if you're going into the traditional tarot. The tarot is really based on archetypes. Like the traditional is really archetypal. I mean, that means that's like, for instance, the Magician card right here. This is like, if you were to look at a story and say what archetype this would be Dumbledore in Harry Potter. This would be Gandalf in The Lord of the Rings. That's the Magnus archetype. And the Magnus turns up in different guises all over the place. And he's not always an old man with a beard. Mary Poppins is a Magnus archetype, but it's the basis of a lot of story characters, and it is deeply ingrained in our subconscious mind. Actually, Carl Jung is extensively referenced in this particular book because he's talking about the collective unconscious and how these symbols and these character types turn up in our lives, because all of us have connections to these archetypes. It's
Sure.
part of our unconscious and our roles that we play in life and all of these things.
Yeah, I have a role I play in life. It's almost like Dumbledore, but it's more like Doofusdor. But it works for me.
Yes. Oh man. Yeah, and so I got him just for you. This is the Fool.
Yep, that's for me. Yep.
But they have deeper meanings. I mean, the Fool, when the card shows up, it could be that this is new beginnings. This is trying something you never tried before.
Sure.
This is many things that come in. I mean, maybe somebody's playing you for a fool. Maybe you're being foolish. It just depends on
Honey?
what the context is. So that's the archetypes, and this also is extremely archetypal. And he actually kind of cheats a little bit because he puts he makes up new cards and new pictures that he calls them different things, but he puts the actual tarot major arcana name on the back of the card. So he's kind of like trying to straddle both ways.
Oh boy, I've been there before. It's not easy.
When you get to the oracle cards, though, then you branch out into anything. This is Keepers of the Light oracle cards, and it's 45 cards of Ascended Masters, and you pull one to see which Ascended Master is wanting to give you a message today and what that message is. And all of these have these little tiny, well, not tiny, but these hand-sized booklets that explain the cards. This is Energy Oracle cards. This is one of my favorites. And this is 53. And this is more about life's journey.
Why is it one of your favorites?
Because I don't know.
You just feel you connect with it better?
Yeah, I feel I connect with it better.
Okay.
It's got a lot of things about things happening and what events are and where you are.
So do you believe when you are using these types of cards, as for anyone who uses these cards, they do have to feel just a connection with it? This is not just something you can just pick up and read and learn how to do and go, okay, now I'm a master at it. You have to actually feel as though you're getting a connection with that.
Yes, well, because they're great for developing intuition. That's one of the things they're great for, because you have a picture in front of you and then you go within and you say, okay, what does this mean for me? Because like we said, the Fool card can mean many things depending on what your question was and what the context is. The identification of this goes from very general to very specific.
Gotcha.
And so using your intuition, and that's what the professional card readers do, is they look at the cards and they're not just looking at the cards or the book because most of the personal card readers don't actually read the book at all when they're doing when they're doing readings, but they're focused on the energy of the person across from them. They are focused on what the cards are saying, like what the vibe is coming off of, what particular aspect of that card to focus on in a given moment. So it isn't something that necessarily you could just sit down in an afternoon and do. It's something you kind of attune to, like anything else.
Do you think that's a regular thing, that people don't want to use the directions of things because they want to make sure they're getting out of it what they're actually getting out of it and not what they're being told to get out of it?
I think that the books are really good guide marks, especially when you're starting out.
Sure.
But once you get so familiar with a deck, and you're like, oh, I've seen this space before. I know what space I was in then. I know what space I'm in now. And you more feel it almost like a portal of information rather than I read the book. Now, the book is very useful, but even with that, I always say, take what jumps out at you, you know, because there will be a phrase or something and you'll click, okay, that doesn't apply, that doesn't apply. Ooh, that's good. That one actually applies to the situation. And I have the wisdom of that to help me go forward. So it is like science and art in a sense. Sure. And the more that you use them, the more art comes into it. Sure. Basically.
I never read the book. I always wait for the movie.
You do.
I do.
This is another deck I have, and this is the smallest deck, but it's also the most powerful. This is a deck of 11 cards that actually use meditation to help you focus your intention. Okay. And you just spread them out around you and put on your meditation music and go for it. So I'm just showing that there's a huge variety.
Yes,
and
I see.
With people buying tarot cards or buying oracle cards, go with what appeals to you, always. Because the deck will speak to you and you'll be like, oh, I need to take that home with me, and you walk out with it, and then you begin your conversation with the deck of cards.
Right, like I did recently with a pendulum. I went and bought myself a pendulum, and what I did is I held on to each one and asked myself, is this the right one? Is this the right one? Until I found one and said, yep, this is the right one, and said, okay, and I went with it.
Yeah,
and then I brought it home and it fell into pieces.
It did, really?
It did. It fell apart. The chain fell apart, and when I brought it back to the store, he was like, how did it get broken so badly? I said, I don't know. I took it out of the bag and it just fell apart. And he was like, oh my goodness. But it wasn't so much it wasn't the stone itself that I had the problems with. It was just the chain itself. So it was a bad chain. So I just went and got another one just exactly like it and picked it up and took it home.
Wow.
Yeah.
That kind of makes sense, actually. You have a lot of energy, and apparently it was absorbing that.
I do, yeah. That's why we have so many problems with electrical things all the time, because whatever I touch with electricity going through it just seems to get messed up all the time. But it's me, it's my energy, so yes.
So was there anything else you wanted to know about the tarot in particular, or the oracle?
Well, I have some questions written down here. So, do tarot cards or oracle cards, can they tell the future?
Well, that is a kind of a gray area. It's a yes and a no. Because what the cards show is an energy vortex. It's whatever you're in at the moment. For instance, if you had an argument with someone and you want to know what you're actually thinking about the argument and what actually happened. Sure. Sometimes you can tell what happened. You're like, okay, we did that again and I know what happened. But sometimes it's like, what? I don't even understand that. And so,
my wife knows it happens all the time. It's because I'm an asshole. That's why. No.
But it is, you take the cards then and you ask the question, what actually happened? And so then the spread of 3 would be past, present, future, gotcha. Simple reading, right? So this is what caused, this was something about the cause of the argument, this is what actually happened, and this is a possible outcome from it.
And this is why I wanted to have you on here, because when I see someone who is pulling cards, I have no idea what cards they're pulling and why they're pulling them for what. So like you just said, past, present, and future, I just see them pulling them, and so I don't know the understanding or the reasoning behind why they're pulling them and for what particular reasons. But yes.
Well, there are different spreads. That is the simplest spread. There's also a journey spread where there's 3 cards on this side. There's 1 down, 1 in the middle, 1 down, 3 down. And it depends on what they're drawing for. It depends on the question you asked, what spread they might use.
Gotcha. Yeah,
Okay.
again, because I see them pulling it, and I do. Sometimes they put it in one position and another position, but
Right.
you don't know what they're actually doing that
Mhm.
for. So yes.
Yeah, sometimes they do a road, like just 6, and sometimes they'll do 3, and sometimes they'll have the little crossover. It depends on the complexity of the question you asked, and what they're feeling you need. Or maybe it's just that they chose, like, that's their favorite way to do it, so that's just the way they do it. So, you know,
Right.
it really depends on the reader, but each of these books will have suggested patterns that you can play, and they tell you what the
Sure.
card means and what position it's in.
Sure, maybe if I have someone who's pulling cards for me and she's like a very short person, maybe she's doing the yellow brick road because that's what she's used to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Or not.
for sure.
Tiny person joke.
So you have past, present, future. Now, when you get to the future outcome, most of the time that is malleable. Now, depending on how strong the energy is, and here we get a little bit more into the woo of that card, depends on how malleable that outcome is.
Sure.
Because there are always choices, right?
Free will.
Mm-hmm. There's always a free will. So part of the information is, this is the possible future. Is that the one I want? You know?
Right. And if you are drawing the cards for them, you can tell them, okay, this is what can happen as long as you stick with this and this and this.
Yes.
But if you go ahead and change it a little bit, because people do like to change things, and they want to put their ego in there and go, I'm going to make it just a little bit better. And usually when they try to do that, it turns out even worse than you.
It should have just gone with the flow.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So they do, you can, like, I do a drawing with this deck. The yearly drawing I do is I draw one for the 12 months of the year, and then I write them down, and that gives each month an overarching theme.
Wow.
And I look at that sometimes, and sometimes it's absolutely spot on, and sometimes I don't see the correlation as much, but it's just kind of like a thing that I reference during the year to see, you know, what was the energy that I was pulling at that time.
Sure.
And so I don't take it like massively seriously. Okay, this is this month and I have to focus on, no.
Sure.
It's just like a reference point if I want it to
Sure.
go back and look at it. So it really depends on what you want. Now there are some things I feel in life that really, like, there are some things that, like, the momentum is already there. And like, you're falling down the hill, you're gonna go to the bottom.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So there are some things like that may come up that the reader is like, oh my gosh, this is just, it's right here, and it's like, it's coming, it's like practically on your doorstep kind of a thing. But most of the time there's more of that, okay, we're looking at the spread, we're seeing what happened, we're seeing options, and we're moving from there. So I would be very careful about, like, banking on the future from tarot. What it does do is it helps you understand where you are so that you can get to where you want to go.
And when you're doing that, when you see cards come up like that, do you have trouble sometimes holding your composure? Because when you see the cards come up like that, and you're actually thinking in your mind, pulling a card, oh, holy shit. Oh, holy shit. Oh, holy shit. Oh. And then you have to try to keep your composure and go, well.
It happens. Because readers, regardless of what kind of reader you are, and you know this because you are one, whether you're reading the physical body or you're reading tarot or oracle cards, or you're doing any kind of reading, there's always more information that comes up than what you give the person in front of you. And I say that for the lay people because there is a certain point of overwhelmment that you don't want your client to be in. And so that is your kindness to them.
Yes. Whenever I do a reading for people, I always tell them, bring at least 5 or 10 questions written down that you want me to ask for you. And then within those 5 or 10 questions, there's usually, when we start getting more information, then more questions develop because of those questions. So yes, there's always more that comes through, and I try to present them with as much information as I can within the allotted time. But yeah.
So yeah, you have to practice discretion. I mean, you can see that this person is in a very bad relationship, and what they really need is a divorce, but you're not necessarily going to say that to them out loud like that.
Well, maybe you won't, but I do. I tell them right off the bat, hey, get rid of this guy because he's a jerk, you know?
Yeah, and that's according to the reader's lights as well. So
Sure. It's upon your discretion on how you feel with that person. Sure.
Yeah, to be led to. So anyway, it is a very interesting thing because the energy, like you said, the energy is the energy. You can't change what comes up. It is what it is. So yeah, it is a very interesting thing, and I would encourage people to play with whatever attracts them, with the oracle cards, with even with the tarot if they're into like the more massive learning kind of a thing, because it helps to open your intuition.
Yes,
it really does. It helps to open the intuition. It helps you to visualize the things that you can't say because you're not used to using it, so it helps you practice. And also, if you have something that's a naughty problem that you just can't see the woods for the trees to save your life, the weeds are way too high, then this kind of thing can help you. Whether you're doing it for yourself or if you're going to somebody else for a reading, it helps you get a different picture, because a lot of times we get stuck in our energy, you know, and it's like you can't get out because the picture in front of you is the picture in front of you.
Sure.
What the tarot does is it draws another picture for you so that you can have something else to focus on other than, you know, the thing you're manifesting right now, which is not what you want.
Right. Absolutely. So I have a question here. So it says, what is the difference between tarot and oracle, and how would you decide which ones you're going to use for? Is it just a decision that, okay, I need to use these ones, or do you usually get someone who asks you for specific kinds of cards? What's the difference?
I occasionally have clients pull cards, like my medical medium clients. They sometimes have them pull cards, and oftentimes I will be guided to a deck.
Okay.
For myself, it depends on what I'm looking for. If I am doing a really deep reading, I'll pull these.
Yeah. So you kind of know, okay, I'm doing something with someone. You get the inclination to go, okay, I need this deck of cards because it's telling me I got to use these cards. Okay.
Yeah, and I don't usually draw more than one or two, or I don't draw them at all. The clients actually draw them if they're present. But yeah, I'm always guided to which one I need. I don't use this deck very often. This is called Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom Oracle cards. But I have it, and I'm sometimes attracted to it, so I keep it around.
Just in case.
Just in case, yeah. So it's really about what you're drawn to at a given moment and what you need. If you were really wanting to get into symbolism and archetypes and like go the Joseph Campbell kind of route with understanding or Carl Jung, the psychology of it, you would do the tarot.
Okay.
Because this is very much in depth. It's very much like one card, you could sit there and read it again and again and see different things about it. If you are looking for just playing, to open your intuition, I would advise grabbing an oracle deck first.
Okay.
Simply because they are simpler and it's an easy foot in the door kind of a thing. And again, whatever you're attracted to is fine.
Yeah, not that one is better than the other one, but it seems like I hear more of tarot card readers than I do of oracle readers. It seems just to be the more popular thing.
It is because it's very steeped in tradition. It's very much like there's a familiarization. Again, going with a collective consciousness, everybody knows what tarot cards are,
sure.
Right? And they have some understanding of, okay, that's the Fool and this is the Emperor, and like even if they can't name the cards, they still have some familiarity. It's like they've heard it, they've seen it on TV,
right.
So there's a lot about the tarot cards in the public.
Yeah, it's just not everybody understands how they actually work, which is why we're having you here.
Yes.
Which is why some people offer courses on this.
Yes.
Just to help people to get a better understanding.
Yeah. And I don't teach, like I said, I'm a hobbyist. I'm not here to teach oracle cards or tarot. I'm just like giving information about
giving a better understanding of them.
Mhm.
So, what are the spiritual benefits of tarot and oracle cards?
They are very much something that it helps you go deeper without having to like meditate for half an hour
Okay.
or something like
Sure.
that. It's almost like they're a shortcut in a way, and
Yeah.
not in a bad way.
No, you can get the answer right now.
Yes, exactly. Now they do still take a little tuning in. I mean, if you're in a massively agitated state, I would advise you calming down and breathing a little bit, and bringing your system into a quieter space before pulling cards. But as long as you are in an equal, balanced state. I mean, I did a reading for my brother a little while ago, and he just flipped him. He just like pulled him like automatic, but the reading was exactly what he needed. So it's
Wow.
not like something that you need to like be in deep meditative state to do, but I would recommend that you be in a stabilized state if you're going to pull cards.
Sure. Well, Google. I mean, it's more like Google, because Google. Everybody wants to Google everything in this 21st century, and they want their answer right now. They don't want to have to wait for it. They don't want to have to go through something to get their answer. They want to get it right now. So if they can go to someone right now who can pull tarot cards and get the answer for them, sure, why not?
So the other thing that you can do is you can use them, like I said, kind of like portals. If you just draw like one tarot card for a week, and say you drew the Hierophant, well, maybe you need some wisdom. Maybe you need some guidance in the week. And so maybe you put that tarot card someplace safe where you see it, like maybe you put it on the coffee table, or maybe you put it on your bedside stand or someplace where you see it. And you just, when you see the card, you remind yourself that you have the guidance and the wisdom you need.
Sure.
So it's kind of, you could almost use it like that as well. And the Tarot Handbook talks about that. So you could use it in multiple ways, and some of them, you could make up your own way of using it. Really, truly, there's nothing that says there's rules to say it has to be this way. There's a traditional way to do it, but that's just the traditional way.
Are you going to be staring down your deck of cards from across the room saying, okay, tarot cards, I know you got an answer for me. I'm coming for you later,
No, I don't usually stare them down.
Okay.
I pet them sometimes, but I don't stare them down.
Okay, not that I'm a stalker or anything, but just saying.
No, it is, there is a certain amount of shuffling. You don't shuffle because the cards need to be shuffled, because you'll be drawn to what you're drawn to, but you shuffle because you're kind of like putting your intention and your energy for this situation into the card so they can give back. When I draw tarot cards myself, they have to hum for me. Like they actually vibrate.
Okay.
And so that's how I know how to pull a card. But whatever works for you is always good.
Yep, because what works for you doesn't always work for someone else.
Yep, exactly.
Absolutely. All right, I got some more questions here. So, what are some of the misconceptions for both types of cards?
That like you were talking about earlier, like the fact that people expect like this gypsy with this, crystal ball and this, harem outfit.
Yes. Oh boy.
And the truth is that people use these at home all the time. Like people, there are lots of people out there who just buy them because they like them, and it's more about your own energy and what you're doing at this moment than something outside of you that's like this big experience with this gypsy in this tent, right?
Yes. Terry and I were watching a TV show yesterday, and in the TV show there was a woman, part of the story was this kid went to the gypsy tarot card reader, and she had on the big lacy thing with the sparkles all over, and she had her face hidden, and she's pulling cards, and he's going, oh no, and then it turned him, it did a magic spell on him, okay, whatever. And it was so crazy, and that's what they want. But that's the part of it. That's why I'm having you on the show, because the TV and movies want people to actually believe that that's the way it happens, and it doesn't.
That is actually a holdover from late 18th, early 19th century spiritualism.
Right, the gypsies and all that.
And the showmanship that went into that. Because back then they were all about the showman. It was, and even if you were a legitimate person, you did the show because that's what was expected.
Right, because they didn't have TV and movies then, so they had to do a live showmanship to get people to bring them in.
Yeah, exactly. And so now we're in a very different age, and your tarot reader is more likely to be wearing a t-shirt and jeans than
Right.
a turban.
Right. Awesome. Jeans, t-shirt, and a turban. That's going to be my new look after today.
Well, no, minus the turban. I said without the turban.
Maybe.
But yeah,
I like turbans.
turbans are fun.
Okay.
But anyway, it is just that is a fading archetype. That is an archetype that is going away, because what we're
Sure.
finding is that our spirituality no longer has to be a spectacle.
Right.
We can find it within ourselves,
Right.
and we can do this for ourselves.
Right. Most people don't know that. They think they don't have any power or any control over themselves when they actually do.
They do, yeah. And like I said, if the weeds get too high and you need a reading from somebody else, by all means, go find a trustworthy
Yes.
reader.
And that's another part, because that's one thing you have to find, like you just said, is a trustworthy reader. Because there are a lot of people I know that I have seen out there that say they are good at this, but they're not really any good at it, or they're just trying to get one over on you. Yes.
Yeah, and look at Yelp.
Yeah.
Look, references are important.
Do your research.
Do your research for sure.
Yep.
Ask friends if they know a trustworthy person.
Yes.
But really, again, we come back to, and I always come back to this, is that your intuition will tell you whether they're bullshitting you or not.
Right.
As long as you're tuned in. Because if you have a good reader,
that's the part, as long as you're tuned in.
as long as you're tuned in.
Not everyone is tuned in.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
As long as you're tuned in, and my wish is that more and more people get tuned in all the time, then you can tell if you're flowing with this, if they're actually reading your energy, or if they're just throwing out the leftover breakfast they had this morning.
Right. Yeah. That's the reason why we do this show, to try to get more people tuned into this world and stop walking around like the world calls you, the herd mentality, or they want you to believe you're just sheep or you're just cattle. You don't have to believe that way.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And that's part of the journey that this helps to open for people in a very easily accessible way.
What does the message that's being conveyed to people, what it is about the cards that you're trying to convey with this message?
I think, like we were just talking about, follow your own intuition.
Yes.
And I find that is like a life theme for me, because I didn't when I was younger, and it landed me in a shitload of trouble.
Yes.
It was not a happy place to be, and
we were not following the correct path.
Yes, exactly. And it was like pulling teeth. It was like walking on thorns. It was just awful.
Right. We didn't learn lessons very well, because we just kept doing the same, things that don't work for us over and over
again.
Right.
And it kept getting worse, right?
Right.
So when I came to my breaking point, which for me that was very physical, I collapsed shortly after I graduated college with Lyme disease. I didn't know I had that then. It was a wake-up call to me that I couldn't be doing what everybody else was telling me, because it was killing me, quite literally.
Right.
And that I had to find my own way. Right. And so I have spent a lot of time tuning into myself and knowing myself. And that sounds a little scary, because people have this perception of them. Like, again, I was talking to one of my brothers, and he's like, you know what? When there's the Beauty and the Beast story, everybody associates themselves with the beast. Everybody thinks that they're this terrible person, know? And I mean, even the nicest people, they see themselves that way. Whereas when you are tuning into yourself, into your heart space, into your connection with spirit, you begin to open the beauty of your soul.
Yes.
And that's a better place to be. And it's not like there isn't shadow. There is.
Yeah.
But when you begin to integrate it, when you begin to face it, you say, oh, okay, well, that's why I did that. That I didn't do that because I was a bad person. I did that because I was frightened, or I did that because I was off guard, or I did that because of this programming that I had when I was a child. I'm not a bad person. I just and following something that's not me.
Absolutely, the programming, because the world teaches you these things. They want you to believe that you're not good enough, that you do become your own worst critic, your own worst enemy. They want you to believe in these things because that's what the world does, because they want you to be able to rely on them for everything, where we need to discover for ourselves that we can rely on ourselves for these things. And we have to figure it out and stop. We need to teach ourselves differently and stop going with the teaching that's been going on for thousands of years, because it doesn't work.
There is a lot of truth in some of the old scriptures, but it is a thing where it has been misinterpreted, it has been abused, it has been wrenched in ways, and again,
for power and control.
And a lot of it you can discard, and this you can say, okay, that resonates. I understand now what that means to me. And you can use it if it's something that resonates, that you understand as something that is part of your soul's truth.
Yes.
But it is not something that should be enforced on anyone.
Right. Right, because you still have a choice. But you have to go with what choices that you feel are best for you.
Yeah. So it is that message of the intuition that I really think these oracle cards, the tarot decks, they open up, and I would encourage more people to become hobbyists if they're interested in spirituality, to explore.
Sure, give it another avenue to look down.
Yeah, like you said, the pendulum for you was another avenue, and so just to be open to that, and just to play. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I know I learned a lot, and I think my audience is going to learn a lot from this, and so I want to thank you, my guest Miriam Dow, for coming on the show today. I hope you had a good time.
I did. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, we always have a good time when we're together anyway. So. And I'd like to thank everybody else for coming in and tuning in today. Again, this is Beyond the Veil with Daniel Jackson. Me. I hope you have a great day. Be good. Don't do any stupid shit.
Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time on Beyond the Veil with Daniel Jackson.